Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy MJ. Welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is legendary importer and relentless advocate for the wines of Spain, Jorge Ordonez. Jorge has twice been named one of the top 20 wine personalities of the year by Robert Parker Jr. He has received the Golden Grape Award from Food and Wine magazine, the Spanish Premio Nacional de Gastronomía Award, and in 2008, Jorge was named Luminary of the Year at the Nantucket Wine Festival, which was the first time the award had been bestowed. And what he is most proud of is creating a market for Spanish wines by celebrating its history and indigenous varietals, while making Spanish grape growers and winemakers believe that their wines deserve a place alongside the greatest wines of the world. Welcome, Jorge.
Thank you, MJ.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Victor has been working on this for like over a year now, so I'm glad we could finally make this happen. I know you brought a number of wines. What's the first wine that we're going to be drinking today?
La Caña Navia, 1920. It's an Albariño.
Okay.
And I brought it because it's a good wine, but also because it gives the first step of bringing something else from Spain beside Rioja into the market. I introduced the category in 1991. I would say for 6-7 years, I was the solo importer of Albariño in the market. People look at me like I have three eyes.
Three eyes or three heads.
And, the competitors were selling the white wines from Spain at $4.5 a piece. I was selling for $12.5. Jean Galtieri, my importer at the time of Middleton Wine Imports, told me that at best I would be lucky if I can sell 150 cases in the state of New York a year.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get to how you came to dominate and sell more than that. But let's start at the beginning. You're from Malaga, correct?
Malaga.
Okay, so I don't really know where that is, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners don't. So tell everybody, obviously it's related to Spain, but it's as an island, or?
No, Malaga is a city by the Mediterranean.
Okay.
And it's a straight line going south from Madrid.
Okay.
So you throw an arrow directly south until you arrive to the water, and the water is Malaga. It's a city founded by the Phoenicians, called by then Malacca, 2,800 years ago that we know. And the reason the weather is because the weather is fantastic. And accidentally, they were looking for tin, and they found good weather, olives, and stuff like that. So I say, we'll stay here.
They were looking for 10.
Yes.
But stayed for the olives and the weather.
Yeah, they found in the way also plenty of silver.
Okay.
In Cadiz, next door to us, gold and everything. So they found everything else but tin.
That's awesome. So I know Spain has an interesting history. So you said that was founded by the Phoenicians.
Yes.
Did it used to be its own state? Like, kind of how did it evolve to where your family was there? How long has your family been there, and how did it evolve as a city-state?
Malaga is a province, but also the name of a city.
Okay.
The Phoenicians and other cultures, like the Greeks later on, the Romans, opened cities, trading post,
okay,
rather than major thinking situations. With the time, they became provinces of the Roman Empire, and so on. My family, my family originally comes from Antequera, a town of the Ordóñez last name, a town in the interior of Malaga, the province. All right? My mother comes from Madrid, so it's kind of like, from all over Spain.
You're kind of from there. Okay, so what was it like growing up at that time? What's the economy like? Was it agriculture? Was it maritime sea? Because I know we've talked about fish a little bit.
Yeah, it was important harbor. A lot of business at the harbor of Malaga. A lot of shipping. I remember the people loading bags of flour on the bags and putting in a pallet, and then with the old cranes going into the boat. And it was an agriculture province. Malaga is the second largest producer in Spain of olives.
Okay.
Olive oil. So that's pretty big. And, it was like kind of primitive. You go waiting for the bus to take me to the school. You could see the bunch of donkeys attached to each other by a rope, carrying bush to start the fire and aromatize the ovens the ovens in which they will make the brick ovens to make the bread, stuff like that. The fishermen used to go through the streets with 2 buckets and selling the fish that they got that morning. So it was a complete different thing.
Yeah.
The markets were bustling, excellent food. I remember in the square seeing plenty of turkeys, black turkeys going, escaping from the guy who was going to cut the head off. I remember my grandmother bringing a turkey home. Of course, later on killed.
And it's kind of fitting. We're actually recording this like about 6 days before Thanksgiving, so I think Jorge's got turkey on his mind. I'm not too sure.
Well, actually, I have suckling pig in my mind.
Very nice. So growing up, what was it like for you growing up? Like, did you play soccer? Did you have to work? Like, what was kind of like your?
I played soccer until I stopped playing soccer because I broke the leg of a friend of mine. I was a defense player, so it was too tough. So I said, no more soccer. Also, my grandfather died a soccer game of, how you call it, heart attack. So that didn't bring up good memories.
Okay.
I was a Boy Scout. I went to the mountains.
Okay.
And I did all kind of shit there. I walked the mountains by myself with a backpack. I went to the highest mountain in Spain several times. And later on, I went to the university because being in contact with nature, I wanted to be an agriculture engineer.
Okay.
No, sorry, I want to be a mountain engineer.
Okay.
But my parents said, no, you are not going that far. Stay here and study something similar, which is agriculture engineering, which is not similar at all because a big difference between potatoes and trees. So that's why I didn't feel like ended up my career being in an office. So by third level, it was 5 levels of agriculture engineering, very tough career. You do a lot of technical studies. I went back to Malaga and I started working with my father, which I always did since I was around 12 years old. I went in the mornings and in the evenings during the summer, and I work in the delivery of the warehouse, unloading trucks in the summer, delivering outside, collecting bills, doing whatever, cleaning the warehouse. I did everything that a distributor can do. So then by 83, I started in the distribution company of my father, which I already work, but summer, a little bit in the summer, a couple of months, 3 months, full time. And then 4 years later, by 87, I came here in September of 87. That's the quick.
That's a quick?
Quick.
So your family had a wine business, though, correct? That's
correct.
Okay.
Founded by my grandfather.
Okay.
My father was a distributor in Malaga.
Okay.
But the whole idea started with my grandfather, who got the agency of La Rioja Alta Winery, which, is
La Rioja. Okay.
super prestigious winery from Rioja. And I think still we are the oldest distributors in the world of La Rioja Alta, because I've been already 60 years on the, or maybe more years on the making with these people, all right? So that we have some fancy foods, we have caviar, we have truffles, we have a lot of kind of good things there in the warehouse. Luckily enough, I was happy to have the storage of the caviar in my own apartment, which made my friends very happy from time to time. And I changed a little bit the company, the philosophy, going from more bulky wines and food to just fine wine.
Okay. So
That's all I brought to the company during a 4 years period that I worked with my brother, actual owner of the company, my brother Javier.
Okay. So being that your family was in the wine business, wine was always on the table at meals when you sat down.
That's correct, though.
Yeah. And what was kind of like, the wine situation from your grand. So you had La Rioja Alta, which is high end, but you mentioned there was a lot of bulk stuff. So was that the
Bulk
majority?
stuff. No, I mean, most of the business, the good houses in Spain were little at the time. You're talking about mainly Rioja. Ribera Duero didn't exist. We're talking about 30, 40 years ago. I mean, Ribera Duero was like, what? I mean, the only wine from Ribera Duero sold at the time was Vega Sicilia. Depending where you were, in Madrid, it was more sophistication. But in the south, most of the people drink plenty of white and rosé and cooked wine, wines that were poorly stored and transport. The transport.
Oh, he said cooked.
Yeah, cook
Yeah.
wine, specialty of the house. I remember going to El Cabra, the goat, that's the nickname of a customer of mine, to sell him wine. And I say, Jorge, you're going to have to take all these 100 cases that you sold me like 3 months ago. He said, well, it's all cooked. You see the color of the white is orange. Will have be a great wine for the times that are current.
Yeah, I know. Actually, we could. You just missed the raw wine. Could have just unloaded those cases over there.
Yeah,
They'd have thought it was great.
The guy left the wine at approximately 120 degrees Fahrenheit the whole summer. So what the hell you want? Well, that was very common. So it was very common to go to a restaurant in the summer to go seafood by the sea and order a bottle of Viñardanza. Will stand better the heat. And they put it in an ice bucket and you drink the Rioja cold because otherwise the room temperature was undrinkable. So the situation, the trucks were not refrigerated. Still, they are not refrigerated today. The warehouses, still, many of them are not refrigerated for wine. So coming from there, when I arrived here, I said, shit, the same thing happened here with our Spanish wines.
Yeah.
So I realized that many of the wines, when I came here, the Spanish wines that I knew there, when you drink them here, were completely cooked.
Yeah. So this is like, when did you first notice that problem? Like about kind of like the storage and treatment of wine.
Well, I noticed because I was buying the few things that were out there.
Okay.
There were not too many wineries. I tried to drink as many possible things. There were no, but I found a common thread that the wine was fucked up, basically. And when I start exporting wine here, or importing, whatever you want to call it, I realized of the resistant offer by the importers to bring reefer containers from Spain.
Okay.
So it's after all Spanish wine. It's like, I mean, like, how the hell you want to succeed here? And we had big fights. For the first years, it was a uphill battle because nobody wanted to buy a Spanish wine to start with. There were 5 brands of Spain in the market, basically. And that was about it. When I came here was Carl Ressler, a friend of mine that later became from Wilton, Connecticut, bringing a few cases of Viñardanza, sold to some of the top stores in the city, and that was it. Tondonia was selling a little bit with Admiral Catani in New Jersey, who was the national importer. And I realized that, the quality of the wine and the perception of the American market was bad because we ship the wines in poor condition, not because the wines were bad originally. And so that's how I started the crusade, fighting with all the importers. You had to bring me, to one point that I wrote a letter to all of them and said, you want to buy wine from me, you have to use a reefer container. But then I realized that was not enough because the guy spent more money, but what happened with the transportation in Spain? So I started shipping the wine refrigerated from every winery to Spain to the shipping point that was the harbor of Bilbao. Then I realized, well, they don't have a refrigerated warehouse. I fought with Hildebrand, now Gory, now DHL company, for 3 years until I obtained the first refrigerated warehouse for wine in a harbor in Spain. That was an achievement, 3 years. later. So 3 years later, I forgot when it was that. I'm talking about maybe 15 years ago. I was able to have a fully integrated system of refrigerating to bring in the wine to America. That single year, my sales went up 30% in America. They paid off.
Yeah. So, how old are you in 1987?
Oh, I'm 64 right now. You can make the numbers.
Okay.
I was born in 1958.
Okay. So yeah, 29. No, 87. I was 19. Yeah, 29. So here's this 29-year-old kid from Spain, bringing new wines to the market. You talked about battling all the battles you had to do. Where did you get this notion to take on, New York and the rest of the world with Spanish wine?
Well, I was here. I knew the wine business a little bit. My head was full of itself, thinking that because I was in the Spanish wine business over there, I would conquer and destroy the market in America for Spanish wines. Initially, it was a very humble experience because it took me 1 year to get the first container order that took another year to be sold in Massachusetts to a small company called MRR Traders, owned by Legal Seafoods at the time. And a good friend of mine today was the guy that saved my ass because I didn't know what I was going to do without such an order. You know, for many years, the sales were not there. It took 7 years to sell 30,000 cases in America. We went calling doors in distributors in New Jersey, closest area, Connecticut, New York mainly. We changed distributors until we found the right one, so-called. But I have been working, fortunately or unfortunately, with the pioneers of distribution of Spanish wines. Before I arrived in 1986, I think was found Classic Wine Imports with Steve Mesler and Almudena de Laguna, which were truly pioneers with their Pesquera wine. And that was inspirational for me, knowing they were doing a Verdejo from Rueda. So I start thinking, well, maybe it's time to sell something else because I'm not selling very well my Rioja here. All right, so I figure out what is not in the market that could be interesting, and the first one was Albariño in 1991.
So, like you said, you introduced Albariño pretty much to the American market.
Yes. Sales today of Albariño here might be around 400,000 cases or something like that. Being a number of brands with one that is bigger than anything, any other people, because it's a co-op. But I mean, and then we got into that philosophy, and then a few years later, we introduced Chacoli, where imagine at the beginning of trying to sell Chacoli here, people were like, how you spell
Well,
that?
I know. I was gonna. I mean, I want to talk about Albariño because, people. I mean, what were people? I know for me, people need a point of reference, and people had no point of reference for Albariño. So how did you market it?
Well, I mean, I said this is the best Albariño I could find. It's a very, very rare grape, which it was. The largest producer at the time, which is the largest producer today, it sold 5,000 cases a year, and today sells 500,000. So it was a rare wine that even local restaurateurs from Galicia say, this is impossible. There are no grapes of Albariño to produce wine. So when people taste it, smell it, say, wow, this is different from a Viura from Rioja cooked in a container for 25 days coming to New York, And I think that's how the thing started. Then by accident, in one of my trips to Galicia, I found the grape Godello, and I found the first producer of Godello that at that time produced 800 cases a year. And I waited 3 years, finally, that the guys make enough wine for me to ship it here. The Chacolí, it was the only importer of Chacolí, the only importer of Godello for years. I mean, so it was very difficult because we didn't have any, team of people selling Godello. It's not like Brunner Berliner. Everybody has a Brunner Berliner in
Right.
their portfolio. Here was the
Right.
guy with the Albariño and the Godello grapes that nobody heard before.
Right. So let's talk about the Albariño you brought, because it's a little different. Like it's I don't know if it's like fine Albariño. Like
Yes.
This is an upscale bottle. What's the treatment on like this? What's the philosophy? La Cana. I say that, I'm saying it wrong, but what's the philosophy behind this wine?
Well, La Caña comes, Navia, it comes from two vineyards, one planted in 1970 and the other one in 1978, I believe. And one is next to a church of the 18th century and a few miles away from the inlet, and the other is just in the inlet. I mean, like you could cast fishing rod from your vineyard and maybe catch a striped bass. And so it's completely different scenarios, very salty wine from the coolest, more Atlantic part of the production of Albariño, which is the Valley of Sadness. It's kind of a peninsula surrounded by water in the north, south, and in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And produce wines that are very steely, very austere, with great pH, and wines that can last. I mean, we opened recently at 2010, so an Albariño 12 years old. The making of the wine is barrel fermented in large format, 500 and 600 liters. Why? Because in many of the making of the wines, I try to be kind of romantic, old-fashioned, and certainly all the Albariños before they came, the stainless steel, were made in chestnut barrels. Because chestnut is very commonly found in Galicia.
Okay.
So I say, I'm going to make something like that, because the first trip I went to over there, in the island of Ogrove, before having a big fiesta or shellfish, I enjoy a wine called by Albariño by El Cura. El Cura means the priest,
Okay.
who on the side, on top of being a priest, makes some bottles of wine. And it was barrel fermented, and it was impressive. When I asked the waiter, with no label, what was the alcohol content, he said, well, the right one, 13.5%. Was outstanding wine. And if you want to visit many of the wineries, many were all together. There 7 or 8. You couldn't find anything similar. So I said, I'm going to make something like that. That's all. Now, fortunately enough, we have a collection, I would say 10, 12 producers making wines of this level of quality. Evidently, each one is made different. We stir the lees. Some people don't stir the lees.
So kind of employing some of the Burgundian techniques to Albariño.
Yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do with Albariño, with the Godello, which is very prone to be kind of, we bought an example here, very similar products, and it worked fantastic. I mean, stainless steel is very good to make fast industrial wine. You can make oak chips and microcyclination, and here we go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you want to make a wine that lasts, that you could drink 3-4 years from now, which is always my exception. I drink a lot of Didier Dagenot wines when the wines were incredible.
Yep.
So that was my say. How is possible that Spanish cannot make a good white wine in the style of these people that will age? And that's the concept that finally is in this bottle.
Very nice. So yeah, we should bring out the Godello and talk about Godello, because I read somewhere, and you can, but it was almost kind of like extinct. It was so obscure.
Most of the grapes, white grapes in Spain, went into extinction. It was like the Dust Bowl, the phylloxera, in a country that today is the largest vineyard on earth. And when it rains, the largest producer in the world, which is, I would say, 70% most of the time, the phylloxera was an economic disaster. So in Malaga, we lost 50% of the population in 10 years. in many areas of Galicia, the whole thing they went poor. People at the time, you had to understand that these people drink 4 liters of wine a day per person.
Wait. Okay. Hold on.
Yes.
4 liters a day per person?
Yeah.
4 liters. Wow.
That was told to me by an old timer.
I don't not believe it. It's just incredible.
Well, I mean, the people didn't have much money at the time in the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
With the Civil War, there was no food. So people drink a lot. A little bit of bread, wine, and, and here we go.
Wine is actually food.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I mean, I read somewhere in a history book that the Romans used to give their soldiers wine.
Yes, that's correct.
Because you don't have to worry about digesting it. It gives you energy. And, nice little buzz helps you kill people, when you go around the world, so committing atrocities. So why not?
That's correct. Anyway, so many areas like Rueda, like Valdeorras, like everything, all the areas of white wine disappear. So that's why I grew up drinking Viura from Rioja.
Yep.
Or Macabeo from Penedès. That was it. There was no other option in the country. So imagine that. That's pretty boring.
But it's better than Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc or whatever most people drink here. I mean, I think I agree because obviously, like you said, there was a lot of variety that went away. But I mean, to me,
so these things are incredible. They will just recover wines, grapes, flavors that were gone. So, and so it took a long time, but here we are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you could talk about every Spanish variety in many ways. Each one has its own characteristic, but these two is an example of that. Rueda, when I came here, was 1,200 hectares of vineyards.
Okay.
Of those, a lot of them, at least registered, were Palomino, because it was the grape that was planted all over Galicia and Rueda.
Was Palomino?
It didn't make any... Planted after the phylloxera.
After the fly, okay.
So it didn't make any sense because the Palomino is fantastic to make cherry wines, but it's horrendous in Rueda or super horrendous in Galicia where it produced 35 to 40 tons per hectare. That's pretty big.
So, yeah, that's...
So you get out of control.
That's greedy. That's just obsessive. That's just excessive.
No, the vine is used to grow in a very dry environment. Once you get the rainy Galicia, here you have production.
Yeah. So this one is, they're so different, which makes sense, but...
Yeah, it's a different grape.
But
the technique of making both wines is the same.
Okay.
The barrels are the same, but the grape is different, and the soil is different. Here in the first one, the Albariño, sandy soils of granite. They're found in that valley. Over there is black slate. Different weather conditions. Atlantic, Mediterranean, Atlantic, continental Mediterranean. Very drastic temperatures, different between summer and winter.
And actually you mentioned this, but so you kind of cracked the Albariño market. So you got that going.
Yeah.
Then they like, oh God, here comes Jorge again with some crazy obscure grape from Spain. What are you talking about, Godello? What was the reaction when you started introducing these wines to the market?
Well, let's talk about a winery that I found in the mountains in a monastery from the 13th century. And I was like, I was surprised. I told the story that when I found the bottle, I went to a restaurant, of course, in Galicia, and I saw the bottle there. And it has the coat of arms of the Pope. I said, what the hell is that? And I asked the owner, and he said, yes, the Pope Boltigua was having lunch here like a month and a half ago by himself. He didn't allow anyone. And that's the wine that we serve him, and the Godello from Bodegas Godeval.
Okay.
And I found the wine remarkable, and I said, this is very mineral, very aromatic, quite different of the Albariño, the pH a little bit higher, but it's still low, and produce a different profile of wine. People Didn't like at the beginning. It's too expensive again. But little by little, the walls of Jericho came down after giving 300 rounds to Jericho.
All right. So you're in the market. Things are growing. So when would you say, so you started, you were here in 87, right?
That's correct.
Okay. What would you say was like your big, what was like your big breakthrough wine, or what was like?
Well, I mean, at the beginning, we start having troubles with selling Rioja wines. I came with a secondary winery of Rioja because La Rioja Alta, nor Muga trust a young guy in the American market. So
Okay.
they told me basically when you grow older and stronger and you grow hair in your pubis, come back and talk to us. And so we'll maybe consider your offering. So I brought a winery, obscure, that I used to sell a lot in Malaga, from Rioja, who has attached to it, basically attached, a winery from Navarra. And voila, he has started the Grenache game. Grenache or Garnacha, a grape absolutely national, a Spanish grape, was unknown even by the Spanish people in general.
Really?
And here, nobody pay attention to it.
Yeah.
The prices were right, so we start selling good quantities of that, 10,000 cases. Unfortunately, 4 years later, the company went belly up, and I was hanging dry like a codfish because it was the only company I was using beside a cava producer. So when I was having my fried churros, fried dough in the morning, and I heard about the company up by the owner, belly up, I almost choked. But that same day, I took the resolution to fix it. And I called my friends in Rioja, which I met in 1998, the Guren family from San Vicente de la Sonsierra, and we launched the winery big time because I have kind of an exclusivity with the people of Gurpegi, and I told I cannot do anything. We did side things, but nothing major. So that's when I start firmly working with the Gurin, a family-owned company, a small bodega in Rioja, traditional, demi-macération carbonique, in the best terroir of Rioja. Today is considered one of the best holdings in Rioja of estate bottled wine. They have 4 wineries, and they have more estate bottled single vineyards than anyone else, although the appellation doesn't recognize it. That helped me a lot because they have a Rioja called Códice that we used to sell like peanuts. And the crianza was smooth, fantastic, super elegante. It wasn't modern, but it was like perfecto for the market. The fruit from those vineyards is incredible. Then I said, what am I going to do with the Grenache? I have to substitute my 10,000 cases market. I went to Aragon, and I spent a week, in that same trip, visiting all the vineyards and wineries, rather, in Aragon, in the area of production of Garnacha, which is Calatayud and Campo de Borja. And then I hook up with a famous winery, a famous co-op, that was Bodegas Borsal. And then with those two, I managed to start growing sales and adding things. Soon enough came Remeyuri. Then Muga finally said, yes, we're going to work with you because they were selling 140 cases in 1 year in the whole country. I said, I think I can do more. And so, basically I saw grow Muga to success because I already worked with them in Spain. There is 2 generations that I met. I have now 3 generations that I met Bodegas Sierra Cantabria, a Guren group, and I saw them grow more to more success because Muga was pre-established a little bit, but not internationally like it's today. It was in the developing years to be a great success story. And the same thing with the Guren. I found, as I said, the Chacoli people. I went to the Canary Islands and I brought the first El Grifo Malvasia, when nobody ever heard what is Canary Islands. I'm talking about this 15, 20 years ago. Having the first sparkling by accident Canary Islands Malvasia because 2 containers re-ferment when they arrive here due to low levels of sulfur. And it was not intentional, it was accidental.
You were trying to, you were a natural wine pioneer there, Jorge.
Yes. Well, actually, it was so natural that one of the wines of a famous crop got with a very rare illness that few people have seen it currently, which is called the grease of wine. The wine became with the consistency of motor oil.
Wow.
It occurs during the malolactic fermentation with levels of high sugar, residual sugar levels, and high pH, and voila. You have a beautiful situation. So you're serving the wine, it's a gloop, gloop, gloop. So that was only, we have to send back to Europe 11,000 cases of wine. And the next year when the sales went down, I say, it's your fault, you don't try enough. I have seen all kind of problems in the thing. So thanks God I met with ETS laboratories in California, and I'm addicted to them. So I analyze the wines, the corks, everything to make sure, because I believe in traditional viticulture, traditional practices, obviously no systemic products, no chemicals, just the regular sulfur, copper sulfate, organic fertilization, all vines, no irrigation, which I think is more important than any other thing of the natural practices. If you are already adding water, you're fucking up the project because the plant regulates itself and it produces better grapes when there is less water or no fertilization or less fertilization. So I believe in that part. What I don't believe in having dirty wines. So I make every single effort trying to minimize the addition of sulfur in order to control bacteria in wine, which destroy wine, whether we like it or not. Some people like destroy wine.
Right. It's true.
But I mean, I cannot do it. It's like that's their own taste.
Yeah.
And for the people that have headaches with sulfur in the bottle, I have to say one of the major problems is not the sulfides that we add, is the sulfur compounds that we create in reductive winemaking, being the sulfur sulfides, which we analyze because 50% of the population genetically, I don't know, is defective or lucky enough not to smell them.
Wow.
As a professor of Cornell University told me once. But I mean, for me, it's something unbearable. I mean, like this year so far, my wineries, only my winery has spent $60,000 in analysis in California of quality control.
So you send samples to Davis?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, Davis, no. A company in California.
Okay.
In Santa Helena, California, called ETS.
Who runs that?
Gordon Burns.
Okay.
The owner.
Very cool. So you mentioned, I want to go back because I love Grenache, Garnacha.
Yeah.
That was, I'm not sure what wine that was, but I remember Robert Parker loved, it was like 98. It was like an $8 bottle of Grenache. It was like his house wine. What is it about the regions where Garnacha grows that make it different from, say, Chateauneuf du Pape?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think is stylistically, or why is actually Garnacha, Spanish Grenache, so vastly different?
Well, I think because it's the original Garnacha.
So it's original.
So the one from Aragon, we go to Madrid, it's not the same. In Catalonia, we may found it, but normally it's not the same.
Okay.
And so kind of like the Garnacha from there, when it's made in traditional viticulture, like Goblet, head prune, vineyards, no irrigation, again, stuff like that, you could get wines as dark as a Cabernet Sauvignon. Because low yields, simple. So if you put a lot of water, then you get in the lighter stuff, which most of the garnachas from other countries that you see, they are much lighter. Yeah, they are much lighter because instead of producing 5 tons, 4 tons per hectare from a vineyard 80 years old, you produce 15. It's very simple. And nobody should tell me ever that a good garnacha should be light in color or light in flavor, because it's a question of that we are starting to forget what a good wine should be. So I mean, if you give me a vineyard or garnacha that is 60 years old, I would never change it for 10 times bigger land piece of a wine a vineyard that is 10 years old.
Gotcha.
Needless to say, I wouldn't change it for 50 hectares of wire vineyard. Because the wire, on top of that, increase production. We have seen situations in which people buy productive clones from France. I don't say that every Grenache in France is productive, but they buy the productive industrial clone of Grenache, and production goes 3 times up.
Wow.
In Campo de Borja, for example, or in Calatayud. So you tell me what is better. Can you make a natural wine with that? Is that fashionable?
You can make a natural wine with anything if you talk to a lot of
I don't know.
burgeoning winemakers.
Yes, there is no regulation.
Right.
But the reality is, one of the blessings that we have in Spain is the largest collection, on top of vineyards in the world, but of old vines.
So you have the large collection of old vines anywhere in the world.
So these two wines are old vines.
Yeah. And people don't think of old white wines with old vines for whatever reason. It gets lost on us, right?
I don't understand why
Yeah.
I shouldn't think about.
Right.
I mean, if I have the money, I could buy everything that is old. The problem is the companies look for the money, and old means low yields. Simple.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. That becomes a challenge for people.
I mean, when sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
When Pesquera came out here, it was a monster wine.
Yeah.
Incredible wine.
Yeah.
Throw sediments because it wasn't filtered or stabilized. So one finger of sediments, but the wine was incredible. Why? The vineyards were 90 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, when a few years later they changed, different.
Right.
When Teófilo Reyes, the ex-winemaker of Pesquera, came out, both of them died, unfortunately, the wine got monster wine again. The first wine from Spain that got the top 10 of the year in the wine spectator, no wine advocate. So, when the kids of Teófilo Reyes decide to make money and make from wire trellis vineyards, the brand disappeared. They have to sell the winery. Sales went here to hell, and that wasn't the story. So if you want to make great wine, if you are a decent winemaker, you can make great wines always with old vines. I question the possibility of making great wine with a 15-year-old vineyard.
Yeah. Because that's what people do. I mean, people, here, especially in the States, people will buy a vineyard. That's one of the things that I'm sad about with California is that because of the judgment of Paris, people pulled out like old vines that the immigrants brought to plant Cabernet Sauvignon. And even to this day, someone will buy a vineyard and they want to make Cabernet Sauvignon, so they'll pull up what's there. And, 4 years later, they start making wine off these young vines. And they're irrigated, too. That's all another thing.
No, you have to make sure that the production is up.
Right.
And, of course, the alcohol down.
Right.
Some people tell me in Spain, it's like, why you don't make lighter wines with not so much alcohol? I say, because I make Garnacha and Grenache or Garnacha.
Yep.
Is ripe above 14.5% by volume.
Exactly.
And if on top of that, it comes from a vineyard that is 1,000 meters or more than 3,000 feet in elevation, a Mediterranean Garnacha, it will mature or ripen very slowly, producing great grapes, but then higher alcohol, 15.5% by volume. The solution, many people do, to be fashionable, they add water.
They water it down, which is crazy.
I mean, you could water it down two ways. When the wine is finished, which is very common practice, that nobody wants to talk about it.
Sure.
But I talk because I don't do it.
Yeah.
And the other is, watering down your vineyard. Simple.
Right.
And multiplying the production for 3.
Yeah.
Bigger grapes.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen a lot. I mean, I don't know if there was a trend before, but when I started in the late 90s, I fell in love with big wines, just because they were riper, they had more flavor.
Yeah.
But now this conversation of like people will tell me like, oh, you love those high alcohol wines. I go, no, I like Grenache, I like Chateauneuf de Pape, and these wines, that's what they do. They like heat, they get ripe. I like Humilla. I like.
Well, Humilla is another example.
Yeah.
Humilla started also around early 90s. I theorized because the style of the market, like it in California, warmer, all right, that the Humilla grape, the Monastrell, the Monastrell grape could do great. So I don't think that Humilla will be where it is today, nor Alicante if I wouldn't be involved in that trade. Most probably the vineyards would have been all uprooted. When I came there, I started with Finca Luzon. They were a producer of 12 million liters in bulk and 3,000 cases bottle. When they sold it, I used to sell 40,000 cases in America. Major improvement 10 years later. Not 10 years, no, actually, 7 years later. Then it came the Juan Hills, which were the managers of these people, and I used to make the wine for them. Every year I went there, spent a few days blending the wine for them. And now is the story of Clio El Nido, bodegas that I founded in 2002 with them. So I love those wines.
Yeah.
Evidently, once you have a excellent paella making real fire, pine cuttings with rabbit and escargot, what else you could have but a great Monastrell? But people today, the producers, are trying to make lighter wines.
Yeah.
So they're trying to water down the wines, harvesting green.
Yeah.
So the result is, nothing. A shadow of the grape, no finish, tannins, they are green, and everybody say, oh, that's fantastic. That's very creative. The wine will be great 30 years from now.
This is a good point. Let's take a quick break, and I'm going to come back with more Jorge. We'll be back in just a second. Okay, we're back. So I was laughing because, there's a whole trend right now. First of all, young people in the United States, I don't know how they're in Europe, but young people in the United States aren't drinking wine. They're drinking these seltzers and all this stuff. And then there's a whole sober movement, which is great. Unless you had a problem drinking, I don't know why, if you've never drank, you're going to be sober for your whole life, but whatever floats your boat. But then, there's so many people, I don't understand people who are harvesting grapes like Grenache, Garnacha, or even in the U.S., like Zinfandel. Zinfandel likes to get hot, it likes to get ripe, and then people are making 11% alcohol wines from these grapes and they're insipid. They just don't. The flavor's not there. Have you seen a cycle like this before? Because you've been in this business long, or is this a new era of?
What to me is nonsense, absoluto. I mean, it's I suppose the people of David's, or other university, Cornell, wine school, and the many others in the country would be in shock if to read articles and opinions of certain peoples in the trade, or certain winemakers, or maybe they never went to school. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Whatever is wrong now is right.
Right.
So it's like eating green tomatoes all year round.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic. I love green tomatoes, but I prefer them ripe.
Yeah. Yeah. I I get to taste a lot of wines, and I am always shocked when I taste something. But it's old vines, right? So there's a Turley, which makes big reds, and they've actually dialed down since Teagan became their winemaker. But there's an old vine Cinsault vineyard. It's like I think it's the oldest own rooted in the world right now. It's like 120 years old in Lodi. That thing's 12% alcohol, 12.5% alcohol, but full of flavor because it's old vines. I mean, he's probably getting like 3 berries off of each, goblet there. But that's typically not the case. I'm always impressed when someone's coming in at 12.5 and they're getting that full ripe fruit that a young wine, in my opinion, should have. I think grapes are fruit, so there should be some fruit in my wine, particularly when it's young. That's just me.
Well, I mean, I agree. There is another question: is not all the grapes ripen at the same level?
Yeah.
So we never see it. I mean, the Tempranillo, the higher the altitude, the higher the alcohol. Mm-hmm. The different varieties, the higher the alcohol. It's very simple. I mean, the Tempranillo in Rioja is not the same one in Toro.
Mm-hmm.
So why they should mature at the same time? I don't understand. What's the point?
Right.
Everything cannot be the same.
Right.
There is not the same residual sugar in what I was going to say in a banana versus an apple.
Right. That's very true. Love the minerally in this, and I know it's, and I'm gonna say I know it was done in oak, but it's got a steely, flinty quality. Almost for people like if you like Chablis, this could be kind of like in your pocket, of a white from Spain to try. That's what I would say, people.
Yes.
And
people say that.
Right.
Well, the whole, we have been always representing wineries from all over Spain, always being the icebreaker in the market. Mm-hmm. We were the first people to bring the wines of Mallorca here. That happened again, many years ago.
I know Mallorca because it's like a vacation spot, like for a lot of people. There's wines there?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. There's wine likes beautiful places.
Montenegro and Calais and stuff like that. So it's pretty. I mean, they blended with Cabernet, but it always had been a wine tradition in Mallorca. But we brought that, and we stopped doing the logistics because the logistics at the time was a pain in the neck. It's just like by the time the wine arrived to Bilbao, it was fully cooked. Today will be easier to bring it because more refrigeration, things are getting sophisticated. But at the time, it wasn't imaginable to bring 2 pallets of wine from Mallorca to Bilbao, the north of Spain, from the island, without the wine being cooked. So I dropped the ball and said, no more. Mm-hmm. Plus, the people were drunk the whole day, the people at the winery, and forgot about everything. I called them. They were completely stoned half of the time. And I called him and say, did you call me yesterday? Yes, I asked you for the fucking labels. Well, I would swear that you didn't call me whatsoever. So I remember the first time I went to visit in Mallorca, the people say, I know you have the best lobster in Spain.
Okay.
Could you please prepare one for me or bring me to a restaurant? I pay, I invite. The guys show up. I show up there and say, where's my lobster? I say, no lobster today. Today we have tongue, salad with capers, vinegary, with wine, red wine. Thank you so much.
So, you have this thing of pioneering regions. Why? I mean,
why not?
I mean, yeah. I mean, again, if you want to make money, right? You're like, okay, let me just find some Cabernet Sauvignon. Let's create some super Spaniards and mix Merlot and Cabernet, and and I could market that, and that would seem like an easier path than highlighting these unknown wine regions. So, what we were drinking right now is a 2016 Vuitton.
Yeah.
Okay, so Like, talk about Toro,
Yeah.
because I'm sure a lot of people listening don't even know about Toro.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you could sell authenticity.
Okay.
Who needs another Cabernet, another Chardonnay, another, you know what I mean? Tempranillo is already being planted in California with not so great success because it's a grape that doesn't like high yields. But I brought this bottle because it's the first region in which we built a winery.
Okay.
And that's the project of Numancia,
Okay.
a project that I figured out I wanted to do. I became obsessive after going there and visiting the region several times, visiting all the producers. And finally, since I know winemaker, I called the Gurens and I told them what to do. I mean, I know winemaker, but I can tell my winemakers how I would like
Sure.
to make a wine,
Sure.
you know, because I learned by trial and error, basically. And so after 3 years, they were convinced. Now we started a project called Numancia. That was the most successful winery business in Spain at that time. We sold the production here in like a week, all the wine that my partners wanted to give me. And so finally we sold it to the famous company, the French company. All right. But
So-
it was an experience because when we arrived there, we were charged, are you ready? $2,000 per hectare, dry farm, 130 years old vineyard of Tempranillo. See, the people in California will find out that
I know. Like,
we bought the church of the town from the 15th.
but the church.
Yeah, it was in ruins, and the mayor of the town said, "Do you want to buy it?" I said, "Of course." How much is that? So we bought the church for the 15th century for $50,000.
Shit.
So that was the.
I'm moving to
great-
Spain.
No longer. Now it's
I
the
know,
same,
right?
The
Same
same
as
hectare
these-
is now. When we sold the company from 8 wineries in the appellation, we went to 70.
Yeah.
The success was such that the people went there like gold diggers.
Right. It's like anywhere else, right? Anywhere else in the world.
Exactly.
They're gonna flock to it. So again, we're talking about place. We're talking about terroir.
Total difference between here and Rioja.
Yeah.
The profile of the grape is quite different. Here we're talking about 730 meters above sea level plateau, which means that on average is the highest region in Spain for Tempranillo. We're talking about a whole region that resists the phylloxera because it's all sand, like going to the beaches of the Gulf of Mexico with a little gravel, beautiful, with a lower layer, 2 meters, 3 meters of red clay that hold the water for the root system. So you have ungrafted grapes galore. So that's why the profile of the Tempranillo is completely different. The soils are the poorest, the altitude the highest, and you have a different kit, a different Tempranillo altogether. You have to understand that people thought when maybe 20, 25 years ago, that the Spanish wine's very oaky and stuff like that. I think it's true, but for 2 different reasons. One's the quality of the oak. We used to use cheap American oak, and still we do. And the other was the transportation. Once you cook a wine, the first thing you lose is the fruit.
Right.
And whatever is left is the oak.
Right.
So I think it was an impression and lack of quality. These wines see only French oak.
Okay.
And I have 2 examples of that from Rioja here. You could see, again, that the wines of Rioja has improved substantially due to the use of better oak.
Sure.
Not reducing the amount of oak, because this wine has new oak,
Okay.
and as well as the next ones. But I think they are in balance. Maybe wrong.
Well, no, I think there is a conversation. I mean, you said this earlier, but people get a journalist, well-meaning, could be well-meaning, writes an article, and people will zero in on like, oh my God, and they start thinking oak is bad. But high-end wines they love French oak. I mean, how wines from France.
Right,
Right, exactly. I mean, when people you know, you get a white berg, you know, Shoshana Manche, that shit's been cured in 100% new French oak, right? Like that's just what's so. But you mentioned the oak and these are big and they're robust wines. What was the first wine that kind of came on Robert Parker's radar out of your portfolio?
Actually, I think that was Códice, the wine that I mentioned from the Guren family, and a few other wines. I think we still have the issue around there. I think wines from Sierra Cantabria were there, and you know, we well. By the way, I sent samples to him since 1987.
Okay.
So 7 years later, rate my wines for the first time. So when I met him first time, I say, where you have been all these 7 years? I could have used your help to sell the wine.
Yeah, the hard part's over now, Bobby.
Yeah, that's what I say. I say, well, I'm going to help you a lot. I said, thank you, but I'm selling 30,000 cases. You could have before. It was very, very, very difficult. The only reason of the success was I have no other option. So.
Yeah, talk about that. I mean,
what I'm gonna do here?
So I mean, yeah, had you left your family business? You started your own. So
yes,
wow,
from scratch here.
Wow.
And so I cut the ties. So
okay.
I have to make it. And I mean, and I love the business. And the more I found weird things, they were great.
Yep.
And new grapes, looking for vineyards. In the middle of the night, looking for a producer of Juan Garcia or stuff like that. It was very interesting, let me say. And it's like cool because you just discovered your own country in the back roads. And Spain being a small country, I mean, not so small, but small.
Yeah.
Is way more complex than America, as you know.
Yeah, that's, I mean.
In terms of diversity of people,
yeah.
Geography, we are the second highest country in Europe.
Wow.
So on top of being the largest vineyard on earth, we are the second highest, which is pretty good for the world warming.
Yeah.
So, you know, here we are 700 meters, 730 meters above Bordeaux in this. So.
Well, what do you think? I think, aren't they planning... They're planting different grapes in Bordeaux now. I think they're playing around with like Alicante. They're playing around some Portuguese stuff. I heard like Tarriga,
Tempranillo.
Tempranillo, yeah.
I don't know. It's the problem.
He's like, that's their problem.
Everybody is affected. Evidently, if you have a vineyard at sea level, you are screwed.
Yeah.
Simple. But it's.
I never thought of it, but you're right. I mean, it is that simple, right?
The largest
wow.
wine region in the world is in the plateau.
Yeah.
And here we have close to 300,000 hectares of vineyards, which became bulk wine that many people buy. Right. And I'm not going to say who because I ended up being sued.
Yeah.
But I know a long list of people that will be embarrassed.
Yeah. You mentioned this earlier. You said like there was logistics. Everything was getting cooked, but like, was there another stigma that you think Spanish wine was living under? Why it took so long for it to? And to me, they're still not as known as they should be. In all honesty, you know?
I mean, I understand, but I mean, you have to understand that in 30 years, 35 years, well, actually 36 years since it started the movement by Steve Mesler and Modena, things have changed a lot. Still behind the time that I went to Willie Abransky Crossroads shop and told me and say, why you want me to sell wine? You throw me out of Spain, my people. I say, well, I didn't throw you personally. That happened 500 years ago, by the way. so I don't know. Also, you have to understand we had the American-Spanish War, the thing about Cuba. So some people were still alive when, you know.
Yeah, we forget how that plays into stuff.
Yes.
Grudges from like wars and shit.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that, and the fact that the Spanish viticulture now, winemaking, viticulture was perfect because we didn't fuck it up.
Okay.
So it's very natural. it's changing. We are starting to copy Davis and became more French, American. But in terms of winemaking, it was a disaster. We only have one winemaking school. I remember going to a COP that produced 10 million liters, and they have no winemaker. They have the local pharmacist who went there and throw a few chemicals there.
Wow.
And that was it.
Wow.
I remember tanks of 200,000 liters with flies and cucarachas on top. And the guy moved them with a hang to one side and got a Duralex glass for me to taste.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, the crunchy stuff is always free.
Yes.
And that would really be a natural wine if you got cockroaches and flies all up in it. Not anything I'd want to drink.
Riojas.
Riojas.
Rioja that comes from my first serious agency in Rioja. That was a Guren family. There are 4 wineries in Rioja, I believe, and 1 in Toro, because when we finish, they open their own and I open mine. This is the oldest single vineyard they have, and the first vintage is 1991. It's San Vicente is the name of the town in which they are located, and it's a beautiful winery made stone by stone, like in the medieval ways. It's the 16th vintage. We made of these 4,000 cases, more or less, year in, year out.
Okay.
600 meters above sea level in a single vineyard called La Canoca. And it's a classic you could find in many fine restaurants in Spain.
I mean, I love the color on both this and the Toro. Really just
So different.
so different.
In theory, the same grape.
Right. And that's what makes wine so fun once you start getting into it. Was that kind of like your thing that kind of had you highlight these unknown regions because you're like, so people know about Rioja, but do they know about Toro? Do they,
Yeah, but I mean, it's like...
do they know about single vineyard? Because, single vineyards and all,
No.
that's not how the wines were sold.
I mean, I saw growing this winery under my own eyes.
Okay.
So they build new wineries, bought new vineyards, create new single vineyards. Many things could happen in 35 years of history. In the case of Muga, as I say, everything I've seen, many brands that didn't exist when I started working with them. So it's long-term relationships that, thanks God, have lasted because many of them in the wine industry don't work because people get very greedy. When you sell 150,000 cases of wine, they want 300,000 sold by you. And so one of the backstabbing business that we have is the wine business, in which people steal each other year-round, wineries like little boys fighting for the toys on the floor of the apartment.
I love that. Oh,
But I
little
mean,
boys on the
but
floor
I-
of the apartment.
I swear to God that I never stole a winery to any of my competitors because
Gotcha.
I thought it was absolutely immoral.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there is a cutthroat side of the business too. I
Yes.
mean, it's very romantic, but then, there's business and there's ways certain people like to do business,
Yes.
not to be overlooked. But I mean, for you, you'd say it's relationships, though, right? I mean, you've worked with some of these families for
Muga since 1983, a long time ago.
yeah.
All right. These people, I have done business since 1988 with the Sierra Cantabria, Marcos and Miguel Ángel Guren. Yeah. And I could have done business for a longer time with other people that I create labels, blend the wines.
Were you involved with Abadia Retuerta?
Yes, I was
thought
with
so.
Abadia Retuerta.
Yeah.
I was the guy that released the first vintage of Abadia Retuerta here.
Yeah.
So I was the first in many wineries, honestly, in a bunch of them. And still, we try to be on top of the edge of the future because I proud myself that I never represent any winery that call me. So far.
Yeah.
So
No,
far.
I hear you, man. I hear you. I don't necessarily, it's not the best when someone says, "Can I be on your podcast?" You know, so people reach out to me to be on the podcast, and I like to pick. I was like, who do I want to have a conversation with? And that's how this whole thing got started. I was like, hey, because me and you, we have a mutual friend, and he's the one who really put me on to Spanish wines. I want to give a shout out to Armando Luis over at Sparrow.
Yes, Armando Luis.
Yes, he
came with me several trips to Spain.
I know. But he's the one who really kind of opened my eyes because I had worked in New York, and when I went over and worked with him. And so I was really kind of California and France oriented initially. Although I did have Ribera del Duero. I had the Pesquera, which was eye opening in 98.
Yeah, that was fantastic wine.
And I think it was like $12-15 back then.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, but went up broadly.
Yeah, it's gone up. It's gone up now. Yeah,
no,
I think
10 to 25.
Yeah, now it's close to around 30. It's between 25 and 30.
But
it's still the quality. I mean, the quality's there. It just was. I mean,
Armando Luis was a great defender of Spanish wines when nobody gave a shit about them.
Yep, he totally taught me and put me on. And so, like, I only worked with him for like a short amount of time. But then when I went out to California, like a rep came in, I ordered all that shit. Arbor I was like, yo, bring me, like, and because I wanted to introduce people in California to him. And anybody listening, if you like, the whites we've had so far are really they're finessed. The Albariño is a little bit fuller, a little bit richer than the Godello, but they're both just beautiful expressions of white wine. If you want to try something different, you should definitely check them out. And if you like, you guys follow me. If you like big reds, definitely the Vuitton. But this Rioja though is also. It's ripe, it's big, but it's elegant. It's got that finesse. It doesn't have as much muscle, but it's just a beautiful wine.
Yeah, it's from La Sonsierra, which is the high altitude part of Rioja, considered the best terroir. So when Vega Sicilia bought land to make his winery there, they bought it there. Everybody wants to have vineyards there.
Right.
It's a special terroir which have big slabs of sandstone.
Right.
And in between clay with calcareous clay that moves the water through. And so the vineyards have to break through the sandstone. Some vineyards are impossible to plant unless you break the stone, because the soil is so shallow that the only thing the vine can do is throw the roots to the right or
instead of going down. Mm-hmm.
No, they cannot unless they break it.
That's bananas. And then so, like, throughout your career, and we talked about, but Parker really came to enjoy your wines and a lot of high scoring wines. And you said it took 7 years for him to finally review them, but like, what was it like when you got that first big score from Parker?
It was incredible. People.
Everybody's calling you, right?
Yeah, then he was calling me. I spent 7 years calling every asshole and they were hanging the phones on me. I remember calling Cedric from in Orleans. Okay. The famous store.
Yep.
Owner, Cedric Martin. And in my broken English, because I came without English on top of that, I asked him he would be interested in representing my wines. And in a very nice way, he told me, call me back when you get some ratings from Parker.
Wow.
So when I got the first rating, I call him. I say, you told me that 4 years ago. I'm here calling you. But it was, finally I got a break because it was very difficult, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, on top of that, selling new things.
Right.
I wouldn't say weird things. They are great.
No, they're new. They're not weird. They're new and they're unknown. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people, we were talking about, natural wines and green harvesting and lower alcohols and all that stuff. So there also is this conversation about, critics and Parker and, the Parkerization of wine and, but as someone, as an importer, as someone, what is your take on it? I mean, I'll tell you mine. I think that the American wine industry owes a ton to Parker because he made it easy for people to understand wine by putting a number on it. Like people like, oh, he dumbed it down, but like I think he made it more accessible, because in America we're all about tests, we're all about our American football, we're all about our sports, we're all about scores. So to act like that, that's my take. But for you, like I said,
My take is the same. The Wine Spectator gives ratings, wine spirits, everybody gives ratings. I don't see anyone that gives five arrows, which I do when I taste wine. I get excited. I give 12 arrows.
Right.
A regular wine for me is 3 arrows. It's very simple. And then sometimes I make a couple of comments because I've been in tastings that I have to taste in one single day 185 wines.
Yeah.
So you have to be very practical. But I think the American wine industry and the world wine industry are earning a lot because it introduced many regions of the world that were absolutely unknown for the American consumer.
Yeah.
That the main established magazines were not interested in rating. Number one. Second, he introduced us to very good wines of Bordeaux, which were here undervalued. I mean, remember Angelus being $14 in Cherry Lehman.
I know. The stories, man. Before his '82 report came out, man, like you were. I worked at Acker Wines, and I remember Michael Capon. If you remember, Michael said,
yes.
he showed me this. Like actually, they pulled up an ad, but like there was a case of Petrus. Was like a case was $150. A case. 12 bottles, everybody.
Well, I mean, Petrus owing a lot of money to him.
I know.
A lot of things. But I think the people have the freedom to choose whoever they want to
listen
read.
To exactly. I don't
think why is kind of a negative reaction towards Robert Parker simply because he was famous, basically.
Yeah.
I think most of it is, ¿cómo se dice? Envidia.
Jealousy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Haters. I think,
I mean, it's like Frank Sinatra was great.
Yeah.
It's no longer.
Yeah.
But it was great.
Yeah.
And Robert Parker was great.
Right.
And I think we have great journalists in the Wine Spectator and other parts of the industry.
Right.
I don't think so. The same about other countries
that
speak in English.
Yeah. Yeah, that magazine. That's a tough. They're tough. They are tough. Yeah, you make a good point. I mean
that's obviously help me, yes, but thousands of people were helped by him.
Absolutely.
And I know Spanish guys, which there were plenty, but others from other countries, Italy, put many regions in the map, France and her regions. So I don't think that anyone, I mean, everybody can say whatever the hell they want, of course, and voice their opinion, but they should be a little more respectful.
I think so,
for
too.
somebody that tastes 12,000 wines a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it was precise. Many people ask me and say, did he really knew about wine? I say, man, unbelievable. I mean, I presented, the biggest tasting I presented to him was 120 wines. If we have more, which we ended up having at one point 240 wines, we divide it in 2 days.
Yep.
I think the margin of error by him, my humble opinion, in 120 wine, he missed 3.
Wow.
Which is pretty.
That's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people need to understand there was like 2 Psalms in New York in the 80s, and they were both from France, right? And I mean, he really helped break open the culture, and I don't understand, like, agree or disagree, but I don't understand the lack of respect and understanding what I think he did.
Me neither.
I just don't, I don't know if people have to push back.
I wonder if any of these people will taste 12,000 wines.
Right, and that's the thing too, like understanding.
I'm right about that.
That's what I tell them. I'm like, I still read, the critics because I get to taste a lot of wines. I don't get to taste like, Suckling's team tastes 30,000 wines a year. Like I'm not going to taste 30,000 wines in a year.
Evidently.
So this wine, Aro. So I've asked Victor, he's got to bring Aro because I've never had it, and I know this got 100 from my boy Jeb. This is a special wine from Muga. How many times have they made this? This is a special bottling, correct?
Yes, a special bottling. They make of this 480 cases.
Wow. And is this all Graciano? What's in this? Is this
This is a high percentage Graciano. It's 30%.
okay?
That's why this wine is only made in good years. I mean, like nice weather conditions.
Yeah.
This is our first wine was done in 2000.
Okay.
So, but they make it every 3-4 years. Simply because it has a lot of Graciano. And the Graciano, where they have the vineyards, which is the coolest part of Rioja, it ripens, I would say, one every 4 years. That's it. Because Graciano actually is a grape from Rioja Baja.
Okay.
So people say, it's the best grape in Rioja, blah, blah, blah. The most aromatic, correcto. But it's a Mediterranean variety. And like a little bit wild. Tendencies to produce too much.
Is it Spanish in nature?
That I know, yes.
Yeah, okay,
But
yeah.
I haven't get into the
Yeah, no, just because
the genetic studies
yeah.
that many people get.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, to me, the closest thing to a dry Riesling in certain areas of Germany could be an Albariño. But they claim that they have nothing to do with each other. Fine, I believe you.
Yeah, yeah. Because some Graciano showed up in California. They thought it was Mataro or Monastrell, and
No.
yeah, and it wasn't. But
No.
yeah.
It is have nothing to do.
Yeah.
Monastrell,
Yep.
good Monastrell smell completely different.
Yep. Well, they didn't know. They didn't, and then this one guy.
And I can tell you, coming from a guy
Yeah.
that blended millions of liters of Monastrell,
Yeah.
I have some cells made out of Monastrell going around my body every year. I'm talking about every year. So this is a complete different thing.
Yeah.
It's a grape found around there.
Right.
More in the lower Rioja, around the town of Alfaro, and where it ripes perfect most of the years. Here in the Rioja Alta, it's very difficult. So that's why it's, maybe 2-3 years between vintages.
Yeah.
Because the Tempranillo obviously can be done. But because the altitude and the coolest part of Rioja also have difficulties ripening. So I think the Star, it was very good at the beginning, the wine, but I think they are polishing the style a lot lately.
And
Not for the fainted.
not. What is the? I think a lot of people, when they hear Rioja, they think Tempranillo, but there's parts of Rioja where there's Graciano in the blend, there's Garnacha in the blend. What is there a typical blend? If you'd say like those three, or are there any other indigenous grapes that get thrown in there that people may not know about?
Yeah, people are throwing out the things they are trying to found and genetically study, and I found this white Tempranillo, but those are minuscule in front of the whole picture of Rioja. You have to understand now Albariño is allowed to be grown there. I think Sauvignon Blanc too, for the whites to improve the thing or disimprove it. I don't know. I wouldn't allow French varieties in Spain. I would allow other white varieties in Spain. But because most probably they were planted before. I think the Tempranillo in certain areas with good Garnacha makes a very sexy wine. But if you, on top of that, you have excellent Graciano, it makes super sexy. Because Graciano is a grape that in Rioja Alta and Rioja Alavesa, high altitude, it has no structure, very little. It's very delicate. But the aromatics is perfume. That's why you catch in here.
Yeah.
And it is having a 30% Graciano, truly Graciano in a wine of Rioja is a luxury because everybody lies in terms of the percentage. Yeah, the math is the following. There is less than 1% of all grapes in Rioja is Graciano.
Wow.
And you look at the back of the labels, the stories on the bottle, and there is no one that misses 2-3%.
Right.
You take your own conclusion. The math doesn't go. I'm always critical about these things, but what we can do.
Yeah.
I will be more worried about the final quality certified by an appellation in Spain
Yeah.
or elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, where are you at in the business now? I mean, you have your children here.
Well, Victor and Monica are
Yeah.
my, how do you call it, lifesaver.
Okay.
They study at Cornell, enology, and minor in business, so they have the right tools to continue the job.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have sold the business.
Yeah.
I need plenty of jamón de Joselito.
Yeah. I don't even, I mean, listen, there's a story. Actually, it's not a story. It's true. I was there. I went up to Mamaroneck with
Yes, Joe Good.
yeah, with Armando and Mike.
Yes.
And it was to taste a bunch of your stuff. And apparently that guy would always throw a ham bone in the middle of a pallet for him all the time. And we had Serrano. It was the first time I had Serrano ham. Like, he had the whole setup.
No, it wasn't Serrano. It was Iberico,
Iberico. There you go.
Gran Reserva. So we talked to the owner
Okay.
of the Factoria, which is the most exclusive ham producer in Spain. And I said, well, we have to bring some ham here. And I say, all right, so I'll send you the ham, no problem. Completely illegal. And so then we suggested to debone it.
Yeah.
And that's how we came.
Yeah.
Until they catch us. One of the employees even sent it in the mail system. United States.
Yeah, I know.
United States Post Office.
Like, people don't even get like trying to bring in like really good cured meats and cheeses. It's like it's easier to mail somebody some pot. Seriously.
Yes, these days it's true.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This is the situation.
Yeah.
When I came here, being in Boston, the only bread that we have is the sandwich bread, or similar Italian chewy plastic thing,
Yeah.
like fluffy stuff. It was pretty depressive. Also, we didn't have money to go. I mean, you go to more Italian markets, and it was a different world. Now you could eat good bread in America.
Yeah.
Better bread sometimes than in Spain.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's refreshing that the food has improved, but not enough because we have all these limitations to import certain foods from around the world.
Yeah.
For others, we don't.
Right.
We don't have any problem of bringing frozen shrimp from certain countries in which they are fed with excrements, humans' excrements. But
Thanks for that picture, Jorge.
but we have problems of bringing foie gras in a can from France.
I know. It's very weird. Very weird. So, like you said, they're your savers. Like, I know a lot, like in America, there's been a few big wineries where, I don't know if they're big, but iconic.
Yeah.
And the kids didn't want anything to do with it. Like, how did it make you feel? Like, how did they get involved? Just seeing you work, and they kind of decided to get involved, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I told them, they said, well, what I should do? I said, well, you have a company here. You have a import company here. You have wineries in Spain, 5 wineries in Spain. You have relationships. So actually, they are continuing relationship with the next generation of Egurians that have been here, spending time in our house. They spend time there. So it's a natural. I mean, whether they continue or not, they could always sell the business and burn it.
Yeah.
But I think they are doing a great job, and it takes a lot of my shoulders.
Yeah.
And so I'm more involved in the, like talking today, whatever, they need my help. What we should do with this problem? Boom. That's type of thing.
Yeah.
Like the plumber in an emergency.
Yeah, exactly.
I may be wrong, but I give an opinion. That seems to them very important. and I take more attention to the production part.
Yeah, so you have five wineries that you own now in Spain. What regions are they located in?
Well, I mean, we have La Caña in Rías Baixas.
Yep.
We have Avancia in Valdeorras, 3 hours from going east, the same latitude. Going south, 3 hours from Valdeorras, we have Toro. Going east again, we have Breca, Garnacha land, of course. And going south, total, we go to to Malaga. In Bodegas Batan in total, we also have a verdejo that we make in Rueda.
Okay.
So it's total 6 appellations, 5 wineries.
Yeah. You didn't bring it today, but the dry muscatel,
Yeah.
that wine is ridiculous.
Well, that was a very romantic story.
I want to hear that story because that wine is
Well,
ridiculous.
I have a friend of mine that was pretend to study University of Cordoba. But finally he achieved, he finished the career of agricultural engineering. The problem, he was an alcoholic and a drug addict. But he managed to work a few years in Malaga, helping the Association of Crops to provide products, fertilizer, for blah, blah, blah. So one day he called me out of the blue, said, Jorge, I found the best white wine, dessert wine from Malaga. I said, really? Yes, it's incredible. You cannot believe it, how good it is. He said, it's not dark, it's fresh, refreshing. Blah, 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 blah. He kept going and said, you have to come, you have to come. So I came. It's like that was, I think he called me in September.
Okay.
And I was there in October. I visited the winery, was impressed. The wine was fantastic. It was made by Jose Avila, the mayor of a little town called Competa in the mountains. He was the socialist mayor of the town. Next elections, he lost because he only got 1 vote. I guess he wasn't very popular.
Wow. One vote.
Yes, 1 vote mayor. I say, sorry, Jose.
But he probably got no votes because he probably voted for himself. Did his wife even vote for him? He should have got 2.
That's what I said.
He should have got 2.
Yeah, the wife didn't vote for you. Anyway, so the wine was amazing. I brought some samples. I shared them with my now defunct ex-friend from the restaurant in Boston. He loved it. I brought it to a few people. I managed with a case of samples, sell 50 cases of wine, came back, let's say, we'll do it. And then, because the wine was evidently a natural wine, with the tank halfway empty, oxidized. And so the wine was gone. So I say, I was determined, and then we keep fighting for it. I called all the winemaker, we tried the process for 3 years, and finally, in the Masters of Food and Wine in Carmel, California, in the Grand Hyatt event every year that went canceled, I had the opportunity to meet Alois Cracker.
Oh, wow.
A genius. And at 3 o'clock, drinking Cuba Libre, smoking a lot of cigarettes. We closed the deal, and that was 2003.
Okay.
And in 2004, we opened the winery with the intention of making dessert wines, Malaga wines, classic and 45. No addition of alcohol.
Okay.
Because traditionally was the way to make dessert wine there. And in Andalusia, the alcohol was only added when the English trade arrived there.
Got it.
And as a result of that, Alois went to start working with the grapes, who was very emotional. He wanted to build a hotel there, and he loved it. Unfortunately, the poor thing. But he say the second year that we you had to allow me to make a dry Moscatel. I said, why? It's going to be disgusting. And we fought and say, hey, I'm not here if you don't allow me, and that's the result of Botany. A dry Muscat. It was the first dry Muscat done in Malaga ever.
Yep.
And, I'm very proud of it, and we make 4,000 cases of mountain vineyards.
Yeah.
It's very incredible, the setting there. It's like Priorat. It's kind of like very vertical. And you only half an hour away, 40 minutes from the beach, maximum.
Wow.
So
Yeah, when a famed dessert winemaker says, I have to make a dry wine, you might want to listen to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the remarkable thing at 700 to 800 meters above, 850 meters above sea level, the Moscatel near the water, the slate, whatever, produce wines of low pH. Which, if you go with these same plants of Moscatel, you plant it at maybe 100 meters above sea level, you get a different product, different terroir, you have quartz there between the slate. I don't know, but the case is I will never bet in $1 million. I mean, in my life, $1 million for this wine that I was going to like. I thought it would be something flabby and too kind of like perfumey. The much. No, so.
Yeah. Let's start a little trouble. Who's got a better palate, Monica or Victor?
Me. No, I mean, both of them have good palate because they train.
Yeah.
Not as much as I wish, because in order to train, you have to spend all the time.
Yeah.
When you are doing blends in Spain.
Yeah.
And I think little by little we're doing more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we're going to wrap up pretty soon. I play this game. It's called FMK, Fuck, Marry, Kill. I'm going to give you 3 grapes. So the one you just get to just go to town with, one you have to marry, and one you can't drink anymore.
What?
Yeah, so I'm going to name 3 grapes, right? So I'm going to give you 3 grapes.
Yeah.
And this is hypothetically. One you're not going to drink again. You're going to kill it. One you're going to marry, so you're going to see that grape every day. And one's your lover. You're going to you want a little good hot fuck. You're going to go to that grape. Okay, so
Yes.
all right, so so 3 grapes: Garnacha, Tempranillo, and Graciano. Which grape are you fucking? Which grape are you marrying? Which one are you going to kill off? I know.
Well, I mean, it's very easy to answer because I drink, but I drink Tempranillo every day.
Okay, so you're gonna marry Tempranillo.
One bottle and a half. So it's a very simple answer.
Okay.
Regarding the second, I would say Garnacha.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then you're gonna get rid of Graciano because it's kind of.
I mean, I don't want to.
Yeah.
But if I have to.
You have to, yeah.
You force me.
It's just a game. Jorge, what are you most excited for in the future with your company and just your life? What are you most excited about in the future, man?
Well, trying to improve the quality of the wines that we make and the wines that we represent. That's the exciting part of the business. It's always something better that you can do and recommend the people. You know, over the years when the people use back oak, I went to France and I started recommending some of my producers, some, not all of them, better barrels of French oak and more cure and everything. So it's always a challenge. You could always make something better, a way more sophisticated. When we start with the Albariños, we screw up this wine many times. I would say a few times. I would say 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And now I think we make a serious attempt on making something good. Looking forward for them to take more control of the business, for us to buy vineyards, buy buildings, and stuff like that, and going fishing. Unfortunately, as much as I like to go fishing, so far this year I've been able to go 3 times. 3 times.
That's not a lot.
And, you know, the sea is nearby us. So I can see the dolphins and stuff like that. And the fish is jumping. But I'm in the way to someplace else.
Oh, my God. Well, Jorge, thank you so much for coming in. Like I said, it's been a long time coming. I really appreciate you taking the time, sharing with us. Tell people where they can find you, how they can be a part of what you're doing. I guess it's just Jorge Ordonez selections.com. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll be sure to put that in there. I'll put their links, their social links in there. So you guys make sure you follow them. And these are just incredible world-class wines that if you haven't tried them, you need to try them. If you haven't had them in a while, you need to try them again. And if you are buying them, keep buying them because you know the quality of the wines. So everybody out there listening, don't forget to check out the show notes for each episode. That's where you'll find info on the wines we tasted, the links to their social and their website. And until the next time, cheers to the Mavericks, the philosophers, the deep thinkers, and all the wine drinkers. It's MJ. Peace.